You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Coming to you from Magnified Cemeteries, Magnified Pod presents Magnifright Pod, covering your favorite indie horror bands from the Christian alternative scene. Put your taped deaths on record. I'm Count Andrew.
And I'm John O'Lantern. That's the best I could do it. I'm pretty sure I did it last year.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, I think I did Count Andrew last year too. This is our podcast.
Classic. Yes.
And this is episode 2 of Magnifright Pod. Back talking all things spooky for the month of October. John, how is your October, the beginning of your spooky season starting off?
You know, I wish I could dedicate more of my time to all things spooky, but I got to squeeze it in.
Yep.
You know, kids go to bed, do some dishes. Jenny wants to watch Gilmore Girls for the 50th time. So 11 o'clock, I might start something, fall asleep half an hour in. So each day I'm getting in little bits and pieces.
The caffeine consumption of Lorelai and Rory is pretty spooky. And it's a lot of coffee.
What's more terrifying than their caloric and caffeine intake on that show? Good jokes. I know it's more terrifying. The way all of the men have like emotional abuse issues. Yeah,
they're like always yelling and flipping out all the time.
Yeah, I will say Jess matures.
Eventually. Jess is. I stand Jess. I'm Team Jess.
Yeah. He seems like he'd be on the pod at some point. He probably listened to some Mercury Radio Theater at some point in his life.
Absolutely.
We got the spooky decorations up. We've totally changed course on costumes now. I know I said possibly Harry Potter, some other stuff, but Elliot got the Mandalorian costume. He's been talking about Mandalorian for a long time, so that's where we're at. I know we did Star Wars last year, but I was like trying to get Milo to be Grogu, to be a little baby Yoda to go along with him. Milo's not interested. He was like, can you search the scariest costume in the world? I was like, sure. So he really was pushing for one of those costumes where like you're holding your head in your hands and there's no head up top. And he was like, I want that. We were like, I don't think that would be cool. It's cool for you to wear that thing. So anyway, he's pushing hard scary. I think I'm gonna be Grogu.
Nice.
He'll be Mandalorian, and Anyway, we're getting things nailed down. I've gotten some good spooky content, but I gotta start hitting it harder. How about you?
Well, as you know, with your assistance, Kristen and I, which was her birthday yesterday, we watched The Shining because we were
first time for her.
I think the only scene that she had ever seen, which has no context to it, is when Jack goes into room 237 and with the woman getting out of the bathtub.
It's a terrifying scene.
It's a really weird scene, and the first time I saw that, and then like he pulls away and it's like the decaying, but I'm just like,
it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it but then after after the movie, I was like, Kristen, darling, light of my life. She's like, no, do not do that.
You're like, don't you go check out the kitchen? Go check it out. Anyway.
Oh, you want to take him to the hospital? You think you need to get some help?
It's so good.
Yeah, it's
hard to go wrong with that one.
Yeah. The only thing I think I forgot having not watched it, it's been a while, was the dropping of the N-word with the hard R's.
Yeah.
Twice. I mean, I
think it's said with the context where you are supposed to be like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it does come out of nowhere.
Right. This ghost is racist.
yeah, racist ghosts, classic trope. I mean, yeah, I guess shouldn't surprise me in a Kubrick movie, but you know, I guess it's one of those things where it's like when it's supposed to be sort of like a contemporary thing, and then you're like, oh, this doesn't seem like it really fits the tone of anything when it comes out of nowhere. But,
certainly jarring.
Yeah. That movie is anything if not jarring.
It's true.
But I'm just like surprised like at how good it looks for a movie that's over 40 years old. The shots are outstanding. The sound and the music is just iconic and next level and so terrifying.
I think the reason it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite, is that he's such a skilled filmmaker, and he was like, cool, I'm gonna do a straight up horror movie and like apply, very like traditional cinematic methods. Like, I'm at the top of my game as a filmmaker, and I'm gonna use that to make you as scared as possible. So like the scariest stuff is the like composition of the shots and how the camera moves, and the woman turning into the old lady is scary, but the scariest part is when he just sees the bathtub with the shower curtain and it slowly pulls back. That's scarier than anything we see. So like, I just love that it's such a like cinematic horror movie.
Well, yeah, and I also think for many people back in 1980, they were already primed to be scared with anything related to shower curtains or being in the bathroom because of Hitchcock. So
it's true.
It's still, I don't think it was as tropey as maybe people think of it now as that kind of thing. But Jack Nicholson is just out. It's just a great movie. But
so good. This is the Shining Pod.
Yeah.
The podding.
The Doc Pod.
There you go. I keep trying to come up with another pun, but I just can't do it.
The
podcast is the little boy, the little podcast that lives in my mouth.
Red Pod.
That's pretty good. What's podcast backward? Sack.
Doesn't. I don't think it works.
No. Anyway,
another thing that is always and will forever be part of Magnifright Pod and also the spooky season is seasonally appropriate beers and candy.
Yes.
So, John, what are you drinking this week?
I have something that may be like stretching the spooky requirements here, but it's a Trader Joe's beer. So they use this brewery Campanology, but I think they only make stuff for Trader Joe's. But it's a coffee peanut butter cup porter, which is some Johnny P shit. But peanut butter cup was the winner of our Halloween candy bracket last year.
It's true.
What more iconic Halloween food item is there than the Reese's peanut butter cup? So I'm going to honor that with this coffee peanut butter cup porter and see how it goes. I don't know. It's a big boy.
I love a peanut butter porter.
Yes.
Some classic peanut butter porters here in the Twin Cities from Dangerous Man. Their peanut butter porter is outstanding. Prize also has a excellent peanut butter porter. I don't know if I've had one with coffee though. That could be next level. What ABV?
A porter's already a lot. A peanut butter porter is a lot, and a coffee peanut butter porter is a lot. 9%. Yeah. So see how this goes. What are you drinking?
Well, you and I are are both going super hard this week.
Nice.
I have a beer from a brewery that's actually from Niles, Illinois. I'm not sure. I've never heard of it. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's like Unane.
One of the best breweries in the country, baby.
Yeah.
They're constantly winning international awards. Yeah, they're great.
Well, shit. Little did I know, but I got the Devil's Reign.
Yeah, you did.
Reign as in Reign. It's a Belgian style imperial IPA with Citra and Simcoe hops.
Yes.
ABV 9.2.
Hell yeah.
So
Cheers.
yeah, it's got a little little devil looking
Doing some motions.
Yeah, he's doing, I don't know, it looks like he could be skanking or something. But here I'm gonna open this carefully since I've been moving the can around a lot.
Yeah, good call. You know, when you open those craft brew cans, sometimes they explode.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Here's my report on this. The first taste is like very sweet, I think, from the peanut butter, but then it finishes like with the bitterness of the coffee really like cuts through that. So it's ultimately like, sometimes I feel like with these sort of monstrosities, I'm like, oh, it's just too sweet, which I was worried it would be, but
yeah,
at the end of it, it's pretty dark and full as you sip it. So you kind of
got some good balance to it.
Yeah, into it. What's that taste like?
You know, I guess when I was like a Belgian style imperial IPA. I'm familiar with Belgian style beers.
Right.
I expect, a little bit, maybe something floral, maybe a little banana, maybe some kind of hint of malt and fruitiness of some kind. This doesn't really have any of that. So maybe a Belgian style IPA is just wildly different, and it just has to do with like the yeast they're using. And but it also drinks just like a regular IPA, and at 9.2%, that could get pretty hairy pretty fast.
Yeah. See how the pod goes.
Yeah.
I feel like Belgian usually suggests a little
stronger,
fruitier, spicier than your average.
Oh yeah, exactly. Spicy is a good word too.
Yeah. Well, that sounds delightful. I'm very pleased with this. Trader Joe's originated. You're already like sort of skeptical about this wild list of things in here. It's Trader Joe's. There's lactose, which I'm never fully on board with, but I really like this. It's really good.
Yeah, I've never bought any Trader Joe's branded beer, because I've not really heard or read good things about some of their regular beers.
Right.
I've consumed almost every variety of their spirits, from their whiskey, their gin, their tequila, their vodka. And I've always been happy with their spirits, but
I feel like they stepped up their game.
Yeah.
They used to always say like Trader Joe's on the label, which they do not anymore. You cannot find that on here. Which maybe that's, they're trying to be sneaky and say, I don't know, this Campanology brewing thing. I don't know if they're a Wisconsin brewer, but maybe they just exclusively brew Trader Joe's stuff now. But anyway, sneaky. But at the Trader Jose, I will say, we'll do in a pinch if you can't get your hands on a Corona. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
But even more exciting, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm proud to report that this week I tracked down
our
freaking Haribo Sour Vampire Bats.
Yes.
And I'm so excited.
You haven't tasted them yet? You haven't broken down? And
no, man, I was waiting to break that seal on Mike. Ooh,
hell yeah.
I'm so excited. We got the red and green and the red and yellow. And it smells good. You're right. Just good texture, big old bat popping that guy in. Oh, it's so good. What a delight. I'm so happy right now.
I love a happy John. All right.
What do you got?
So I have a few things in here. I'm trying to decide the order in which I want to do this, but I decided I think I want to go a little weird.
Oh yeah. What pairs with your Belgian IPA?
So went to Walgreens, and this this is sort of surprising to me. It's the Nice brand,
Okay.
Nice. That's the their
yes,
the Walgreens brand product. Simple, honest, delicious. So this is a gummy candy mix of body parts.
Ooh, I did see these.
So they're all individually
nice.
wrapped.
They should have 69 body parts in there. All their packages should have 69 different pieces.
Nice.
That way you can go nice.
All right. So what do we got? Got a finger.
Ooh.
We got a lot of stuff in here. So this is all right. We got, oh man, like one side too is like bloody.
Ooh.
Here, let me bust open this. I'm gonna give you the finger here real quick.
Terrifying. Ooh, yeah. Into it.
That's pretty
good.
Decent color for the finger, and then the red on one end.
Good detail on that nail.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on the finger?
It's definitely a gummy, but I think based on the texture, it chews a little bit like a really firm fruit snack.
All right.
But pretty good flavor.
Like a firm fruit snack.
I got this looks like a bloody nose.
Yeah, it does. Gross. Nose versus finger.
Verdict? Very very similar.
Okay, maybe they're all kind of similar.
I mean, it looks like we got some Ooh, holy shit. Look at the size of this fucking eyeball.
See that eyeball, bro.
This is intense.
Oh wow, yeah. That looks like a prop toy eyeball or something. That's cool.
I know, right? It's right. So large.
Pop that ball in. You gotta pick up some body parts. You're making a sort of confused face. Not sure.
What flavor is this?
Oh man, these sour bats are so good.
I'm impressed with the form factor. The overall flavor, a little disappointing. I think the last one that I can see, this looks like a red heart.
There you go. The eyeball is the most impressive visually.
Yeah.
Which I guess what you're paying for with these is the novelty of the look of the body parts.
Right.
Perhaps over the taste.
Yeah, I will say this. In terms of flavor, best flavor goes to the heart, followed by the finger and nose, which tastes similar. And then the eyeball, albeit impressive, a disappointing flavor that I cannot put my bloody finger on.
Well,
so John, you're in a much happier space with candy.
I'm so happy, man. These are so good.
They're so good though, right?
I might finish these like before we get through voicemails.
Wait, John, did you say voicemails?
I did, in fact.
Oh, so
do we have a voicemail line? I forget.
Yeah, we do. We have a voicemail line 872-762-4763 872-7MAGPOD. And as we stated last week, for Magnifright Pod for the month of October, we're only really going to be focusing on voicemails from people that are kind of highlighting all things spooky. So we do have a backlog of some voicemails that we will get to, but we kind of wanted to allow for the focus of this part of the season to just be all about that spooking, bro.
Exclusively spooky.
Yeah, man. We got those tricks and those treats. And we do have a voicemail from our boy Jason in LA.
Hey guys, this is Jason from LA. I recently saw you guys wanted some ghost stories. I got quite a few. I'm going to make it quick because I could call in every week if you guys want for these ones. From the years 1997 to 1999, I attended Calvary Chapel Bible College. It was in Marietta, California. It was a Bible college / conference center. Before it was the Bible college, it'd been around for like 100 years. It was Hollywood stars used to go there back in the early 1900s and 20s and 30s. It was run by a cult, witches. There was it had a history. So I was there from 97 to 99. They bought the campus in 97, and I worked security my last semester there. And there was all types of crazy ghost stories you would hear. And this is the one that got me going the most. But I worked security, and while I worked security, I was on staff. So I lived in staff housing, and the head of security, we were roommates, and it was his birthday. And we got home, and this was before everyone had cell phones, and there was all these messages saying, hey, you need to get down to the campus. There's a demon, a ghost at the water reservoir. What? And so we just thought, it was, side note, we came back celebrating his birthday. So we just thought, okay, they're going to come out, say happy birthday. So we drive down there, go up to the water reservoir, and we hear this. As soon as we're walking up to here, you can get, I'll never forget the chill. The arm hair went up my arms and just this dark feeling. And as we go up, you hear this voice, and it was this moaning voice saying, help me, help me. And then every few minutes you would hear a little boy going, help my dad, help my dad. And we just got flashlights. Who's in there? Can we help you? And we would just hear, oh, help me, help me. And then we hear the little boy's voice going, help my dad, help my dad. So we called the head of the conference center, and he just thought there was something wrong with the pipes. He was making fun of us. The next day, he goes up there, and he's just like, okay, that's a demon, that's a ghost. No one go up there. So I have other Bible college stories, which I can call in every week because I know I got a time limit. But that one was the one that just scared shit out of all of us. And I'll never forget that moaning and that voice and just the feeling. So if you guys want me to call in every week with a different Bible college story, I will. So MagPod for life.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Oh my God.
Thank you, Jason. Please call in every week.
Yes, please do.
Jason's Bible college ghost story corner. That's a good niche.
I'm gonna need to hear a little bit more about the college that was run by witches. You know?
Yeah, I got to know all about this. I will say, first of all, I'm pretty sure he said Calvary Chapel Bible College, but what Google has here is Cabbage Level Bible College, which is maybe like a VeggieTales episode or something. But that's pretty good. But yeah, Hollywood Bible College run by witches with Hollywood starlets. I mean, this is good stuff. No wonder there's weird dad and child trapped in the water there.
Yeah, I
that's terrifying, man.
Yeah, especially if you just go day after day and you it's the same thing. Like,
ugh.
I don't understand that. Man, that's weird stuff.
I always feel this is what we were talking about with the shadow people,
right?
Versus your traditional ghost. Ghosts are usually asking for help, and like, I feel bad that they're like trapped in this loop, and like maybe we just need to help them if we can figure out how to help them. It sounds horrible if they're actually like trapped in this whatever they're trapped in forever.
The sort of limbo of needing to be released from this plane and just pass on to the next plane or something.
Ugh. But of course our natural instinct with the ghost is not to be like, oh, how may I help you today? It's like, oh my God. Speaking of Bible college and paranormal activity, I wanted to clarify something, and I said this to you off mic, but I've told the ghost story, I've told the Hat Man story multiple times, and every time I mention this thing about how my girlfriend at the time wanted to pray after we saw it, and I was like, okay. And the only reason that I include that detail is not to be like, and I was like, okay, but to be like,
classic John.
Just to show how much of an asshole I am. But that when I Googled the Hat Man, when I found out about the Hat Man by looking online and identifying it, almost everybody said that the only way that they got them to go away was by praying or through prayer. So again, I don't know anything, but I do know that that's what she asked us to do, and we didn't see him after that. So I'm just saying. That's why I mentioned prayer. May the record show. Thank you, Jason.
Yes. And keep calling back in, please.
Yes.
And we got our boy Tyler McDonald.
Hey guys, I'm super stoked. Magnifright pod season is here. Listening to the episode, that intro put a big dumb grin on my face. Love the annual retelling of the Hat Man story. I was listening to that driving home from a hockey game at 1:15 in the morning. Oof. So definitely wasn't spooked at all. about the album, I had no clue about the accompanying Bible verses, even though I have the CD, and hadn't looked that deep into the lyrics. So as usual, you guys maybe notice new things, both good and bad, about an album I'd listened to a ton. Some of the track stuff, for some folks, not hitting as hard as the rest of them. I'm with you on that one, but sometimes you just need that sweet groove song. That bass line definitely keeps me in on that one.
For sure.
I think cellophone may be a reference to like a jail cell, like being captive to your phone or something. Chain Gang Bang Gang is so fun, and I feel like it was a leftover from the first album. They even mentioned cuckoo in it. Yeah, and you know, just got to get on that sexy train. I'm with John on the synth on Coming Up Seventh. It just hits so hard and just keeps delivering the whole song. The lisp absolutely kills me. I'm thinking he was trying to like play someone like on a drunken night out being seduced. That's the kind of feeling I got from it. Yeah. I like the last track, but I get that it's kind of soft compared to the rest of them on the album. I like the anti-consumerism lyrics and stuff, but yeah, the music's all right. Once the bridge comes in though, and that solo comes in, and Norman's just kind of rambling through it, from then on, I'm really digging that song. So glad you guys did this album. Magpod for Death.
Yes, there it is.
Thank you, buddy.
So Tyler said,
that's great.
You guys got in my head, and I definitely refer to Chain Gang Bang Bang as Chain Gang Bang Gang, but I'm not re-recording. So yeah, I think us being like, this is a sexy train about gangbangs, maybe got a little bit in his head. But yes, Tyler, thank you. We appreciate you signing off with the Magnifright Pod official sign off, Magpod for Death.
Yes, love it. Yes, that rules, Tyler. Thank you for honoring my Hatman story by listening to it at 1 a.m. The best time to listen, driving around, looking around at some streetlights. And you know, just a quick humble brag. Mark Solomon possibly leaving upside down smiley face emojis on our post about Neon Horse, which suggested to me perhaps he was less than pleased with our takes, but no, he seems to be.
You know,
he seems to be down.
I feel like we were, for the most part, pretty overwhelmingly positive about the record.
I think so. I had a lot of fun going through it, and I'm glad it's a record that Tyler loves as well. Thanks for those thoughts. Oh boy. Ooh. Oh. Oh man.
Our first Phantom Cackler appearance of the Magnifright Pod season.
So good to hear his cackling voice. He truly brings me joy.
I love it. I love it so much.
So good. There were some brand new soundscape elements in his voice.
There were. I'd like to think of the cackler. It's like he needs to run some errands. He's getting in his car.
Is he in his car?
He's got shit to do.
Is he around some sort of like retro cash registers? I heard some scraping. I don't know if that one was like, was it laughing? It sounded like laughing from a doll or something almost. Was it the scraping? Question I have is about the next sound. What is that? It could be like a turn signal. It could be like laughing distantly. I don't know. Do you remember in the 1989 Batman how when Joker dies, he has this little like laughing sound effect toy on his body and it goes. It kind of reminds me of that.
It's the most John Potter hole of all time.
God, I love that movie.
Yeah. Remember in the 1989 Batman and then ...
Anything, but particularly a terrifying laugh that the Joker has on him.
Exactly. So
thank you, Phantom Cackler.
Yes, Cackler. We salute you. This is your season.
Your time to shine and to cackle.
Yes.
As a reminder, pick up some Phantom Cackler merch in our shop, magnifriedpod.storenvy.com.
There you go. Speaking of all things spooky, John, last week we had a little bit of a different kind of approach to.
It was a detour
to some classic things that we like to do, but this time we're last week we took the left fork. This week we're taking the right fork, getting back on course here. And I need to ask you a very important question.
I haven't heard it in so long. Hit me.
Do you want to play a game?
Yes, I do. Yes. I'm ready.
All right. We're back on our game bullshit. And, this week we're going to be talking Mercury Radio Theater, their album, The Blue-Eyed Model. And I have a quiz for you called Blue-Eyed Model. We talking about John Potter over here? Or loosely related question to this Mercury Radio Theater album over here?
I like it.
All right. So
even with my brown eyes, I'll take it.
I mean, your eyes have a bluish hint to them. I don't know.
Sure.
I was just trying.
I think of myself as the brown-eyed model.
Okay. We've always called you that. Anyway, so I have 5 questions for you that are kind of loosely related to this album.
I can't wait. I can't wait to fail and remember that old feeling I haven't felt since last season.
All right. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
First question. There's no shortage of stories about haunted theaters. Many of them can be found in New York City on Broadway. One of the most famous attention-seeking ghosts is Olive Thomas, who purportedly haunts the New Amsterdam Theater. 3 of these have been reported stories about Olive. 1 I made up. Which one did I make up? A, while discussing the film The Artist, a stack of DVDs flew across the room when someone said Olive's sister-in-law was the real star of the silent era. B, a theater goer was told by an usher to wait until intermission to obtain a booster seat, but when they found she had already got one before then, she said she was directed by a woman at the back of the theater where they were, but no employee would ever have done that mid-show. C, a startled security guard woke up the VP of Disney Theatricals in the middle of the night and told her that someone tapped him on the shoulder, and when he turned around, he saw a flapper girl walk through the wall onto 41st Street. Or D, during several live productions of Aladdin, actors and audience members reported hearing what sounded like dancing coming from either backstage or beneath the stage. Members of the crew frantically tried to find a location of this distraction, but were unsuccessful.
This is good shit. This is good, solid Andrew multiple choice, challenging, spooky content. I feel alive. Unlike Olive Thomas, who is dead.
She is dead. She died very young. Some say by suicide. Some say it was accidental. It was an overdose of her husband's. It was like one of those like liquid drug things. I can't remember what it was, but it was kind of a tragic situation.
Yeah. R.I.P. Olive. I'm gonna go with A. I don't know, the DVDs, The Artist, they just don't feel as timely to me. I mean, as timeless to me as the other ones, which probably means I'll get it wrong, but I'm going A.
You're saying that the one I made up, just clarifying, you're saying the other 3 are true, and the one I made up is the one about the DVDs.
Correct. Thank you for making sure, because I'm usually
Nope. Sorry, John. That one is true.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like I think they said it was like a stack of 13 or 14 DVDs that didn't just like fall over. They like projectiled across the room, and there were like many people in the room that could verify that this was something that happened.
Terrifying. I mean, maybe she's a fellow DVD enthusiast and she was just trying to get people to borrow some DVDs.
they're like, she's like, do you want to borrow the artist? I have it on DVD. I have like 13, 14 of them. No, the one that I made up was the one about the dancing during the Aladdin production.
Oh, I'm sad that's fake. That sounds so cool. But I love the idea of like, phantom dancing sounds. That's so cool.
I mean, there's lots of knocking sounds that people hear. Like that's a kind of the classic theater thing, that there's people hear those kinds of sounds around the theater. But you know, I was trying to evoke the whole like flapper thing, the dancing, that kind of stuff. But yeah, these other ones with the woman, you know, the whole thing was like the usher was saying, no, we don't do this during the show. We'll wait during intermission, then we'll have somebody get this for you, and because that's just like the protocol, none of the other ushers or anybody working there would interrupt the show to like do anything like that. And you know, when they found out like they went to bring her one, but she already had it, and she's like, oh no, this woman at the back of the theater, she told me where they were, and they're like, what are you talking about? And it's like, yeah. So
see, ghosts are just trying to help. They're just offering booster seats. Maybe they're throwing some DVDs at you, but you know, who among us doesn't throw a stack of DVDs at someone once in a while?
But because she's so apparently active in this theater, they have a portrait of Olive Thomas, like near the entrance of the New Amsterdam, so people can like, you know, say hi to her. But this is the other thing, is that she doesn't really like often appear to women, that she appears to men far more often, because she like they say that she's a flirt, and so she'll like mess with men a lot more than she will women.
Much like a lady leopard saying, come back to the room.
Exactly.
Ghost of Olive Thomas out there tricking people with lust.
Exactly. All right. Ready for question 2?
Let's go.
All right. Mercury Radio Theater is, of course, named for the Orson Welles radio series Mercury Theater on the Air. The early 20th century was ripe with many spooky radio stories. 3 of these classic radio programs are real, one I made up. Which one did I make up? A, Grave Mistake. B, Death Robbery. C, Murder Castle. Or D, Flesh Peddler.
Now, this is where I get into trouble.
Sure.
Because I'm a big fan of old-time radio horror. I mean, I like all forms of spooky radio stories, be they modern podcasts or old school, you know, 30s and 40s radio horror. I had like a solid stretch where I was like, there are like podcasts that curate old episodes,
right,
and have them out every week, and there was like several years there where I was listening to those nonstop. So I should know myself, and rather than be like, oh, I know so much about this, so naturally I'm gonna give a cocky answer, like when I was like, I'm a big comic book fan, and then I fucking flopped out on that one. So I know that I have listened to some of these for sure, but I can't crack it. I'm tempted to say Murder Castle, because that's sort of a, you know, our infatuation with H.H. Holmes' Murder Castle, Devil in the White City is more of a recent phenomenon, but it did happen a long time ago, and I feel like if I remember right, there was a radio drama based on H.H. Holmes even almost that long ago. Flesh Peddler sounds like maybe too extreme, but I feel like I've heard that one too. I'm just gonna say Grave Mistake. Even though that one seems like it should be one, I think you're trying to throw me by throwing in one that you made up.
So you're saying Grave Mistake is the one that I made up?
Yes.
John, you are correct.
Hey, I was like, I'm pretty sure I recognize the other ones. I don't remember one as sort of like classic as Grave Mistake in there. So.
Yes, so Grave Mistake is definitely fake. Death Robbery was one, kind of a tale as old as time. A guy trying to bring back his dead wife after she died. Murder Castle, you're right on about that. And Flesh Peddler is actually about a ventriloquist, a talent agent trying to sign a ventriloquist act at a carnival, and Flesh Peddler is actually a term used for talent agents or people like in the business of like trying to get talent or hire people or something like that. So, but the best part to me is I was listening to this episode of the Flesh Peddler to get just to get a vibe of it, and so they not only have the whole broadcast of the story, but they also include the commercials in here.
Yes, I know.
So here I want to play a little bit of this
Peddler, which begins in exactly 1 minute.
Smoke Kent with the micronite filter. It is the mild cigarette. It's got the freshest, cleanest taste yet. It is the mild Kent cigarette. Smoke Kent with the micronite filter.
So Smoke Kent,
beautiful,
with the micronite filter.
With the micronite filter.
So John, you might be asking yourself,
what is a micronite?
What is a micronite filter? Well, I'll tell you exactly what it is. A micronite filter is a form of asbestos.
Oh, great!
And not only was it asbestos, it was actually the form of asbestos that was indeed the most toxic form of asbestos.
Oh, man.
So between in the 4 years that the micronite Kent micronite filter cigarettes were made, they sold 13 billion Kent cigarettes from 1952 to March 1952 until May 1956.
It's like you need some help getting this carbon monoxide and nicotine down there. Let's use some asbestos and that'll make it smooth.
Yeah, I was like, what? Like, here, the thing that they're like, yeah, this thing that we that's the most important part, that our selling point. It's like, well, yep, whoops.
I mean, I gotta say, I get it. It's a pretty catchy jingle. Made me want a micronite filter. Micronite doesn't sound like something you want to suck on, even in the context of nice vocal harmonies.
No.
It's like when you have you seen that old those old like Flintstones commercials from like the 60s?
Oh yeah, when they're
like
smoking. Yeah.
Barney, the best thing about this is it goes down easy. There's no filter, so I can smoke it right down. He's like, Chief, that sounds great. It's like, oh man, this is a different time.
It was a very different time when, all of our all the commercials were just about, sucking down cigarettes and how women should stay at home and make meals for their family.
Yeah.
And shut the
There's
fuck up.
definitely yes, an ongoing theme to some of those commercials that they keep in on the shows where it's like it's always charming, but you're always like, ooh, problematic left and right. But yes, highly recommend for folks who might want to have more of that experience. The Horror is one of the old time radio collected pods I listen to. But some of the famous ones back in the day were like Inner Sanctum and Suspense.
Suspense was the one that had Flesh Peddler. I think that was a CBS radio broadcast.
There's one called Quiet Please. There's one called Lights Out.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommended.
Yep. All right, John. 1 for 2. Are you ready for the third one?
All right. Hot hand.
All right.
Let's go.
All right. Number 3. Will John get more than 3 wrong answers on this quiz? After all, they say bad news comes in threes.
Mm-hmm.
This comes from a psychological concept where people try to see connections and patterns to things that aren't there, which includes celebrities dying close together. What is the name of this term?
Oh boy.
Is it A, apophenia, B, solipsism, C, availability heuristic, or D, the Tinkerbell effect?
This is a real phone a friend. I got nothing. I'm going to go C, availability heuristic, even though it probably isn't right, because it feels like I'm going for what's available. This information that's available is like these 3 randomly connected things.
All right. You're saying that making connections between and patterns between things that aren't there is the availability heuristic. That is a hard thing to say.
It is. It's tough.
And it's also wrong.
Bummer.
So the correct answer is apophenia.
Okay.
And it's that sort of thing where people there's like this broad spectrum of this kind of way of looking at things when you look at the clouds and you're like, oh, I think that I see a bunny there, because our brain is always trying to make sense of things or put connections together. But then there's other concepts like various cognitive biases. You are like looking on YouTube trying to find videos to reinforce things that you already believe, and you're looking for sources and for something you believe and ignoring sources that disagree with you. So there's this whole like broad spectrum of these sorts of things that we as people try and make sense of things, and it can be as not a big deal as being like, oh, that potato chip looks like Millard Fillmore, it doesn't look like the same. And then there's another thing where it's like the same kind of thinking, not too many steps ahead, leads to conspiracy theories, because people are just trying to make connections for things that they're like, oh, I'm just gonna jump to conclusions that JFK Jr. is the president, and
naturally,
all that nonsense.
What a world. Yeah. Well, so apophenia is to blame for our current state of things, you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Now the Tinkerbell effect is an intriguing one.
Yes.
What does this mean?
You're gonna put me on the spot here, John. So
I'm sorry, I googled it. I can tell.
Okay. You. You if you have it in front of you, I'm trying to remember if it's like maybe about believing something hard enough or something like that.
Yep. The idea that the more you believe in something, the more it becomes a reality.
Yes. And doing this this question, I was going down all sorts of different philosophical and psychological biases that we all have, and I'm just like, man, it's so easy to just convince ourselves what we want to believe. And our brains are just so complex, and there's a lot of bummer stuff out there, and I'll just trying to leave our minds open to like, hey, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, maybe I don't have all the answers, rather than just being like, but if Trump and the deep state and just
no, the internet was like the perfect match to light the existing dynamite of this kind of thinking. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like it's just exploded this and ruined our world.
Yep.
So
anyway, ready for 4?
Yeah.
All right. This might be more up your alley here, John. Blue-Eyed Model tells the story of a man who builds an out-of-the-box woman for companionship when something goes wrong. There are many horror movies with a similar trope of a doll turning against its owner. But which long-running horror series has 5 movies where Nazis are central to the plot, with names like Axis of Evil and The Littlest Reich? Is it A, Child's Play, B, Puppet Master, C, Annabelle, or D, Demonic Toys?
B, Puppet Master.
You are right. I can't put anything past you when it comes to B, horror movies.
Puppet Master. I've never answered a question quicker on a quiz.
No, it's true. So, yes, Puppet Master has like a billion different movies, and there's at one point when they just switched into like 5 movies in a row that were it's all about Nazis. And I'm very curious, John, have you seen any of the Puppet Master movies, maybe apart from some of the earlier classics?
I've only seen the original Puppet Master, which is good. It's bonkers, but I'm pretty sure the same dude, there's like a Puppet Master auteur, the guy who's behind the brains behind the whole thing, which is also the case for Child's Play, and sort of had a similar trajectory where like they just increasingly became about whatever this guy's tangents and fascinations were, and the budgets got smaller, and they just like more and more reflected the state of this guy. And it morphed from this series about little sadistic puppets to like exclusive Nazi storylines somehow. And there's a Nazi puppet and
there are
Nazi Puppet Master.
There are multiple Nazi puppet characters. I'm like, this is a very specific choice.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend going down that path, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, first one is a fun time. Child's Play kind of similar, where it's in like a more fun way, I'd say. But like one guy controlled everything, so it's like in the early days it was a fairly like gritty, Chicago story,
right,
about this killer doll. And then as it goes on, it's like, he's got a wife and a kid, and he's like, Tiffany, what are we gonna do now? And she's like, come on, Chucky. You're like, wow, this thing has really gone down like a franchise rabbit hole here. Anyway,
I think that's kind of almost with any franchise. It starts. I mean, it's the same thing.
Especially if one person sort of maintains control and is a strange person.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that sort of comes to mind with that was the first Ninja Turtles movie. Talk about like a little more dark and gritty, and then
hell yeah,
and then after that, it just got like formulaic and campier and cheesier, and you're like, where did this go wrong?
Right. Well, people complained after the first one that it was too dark, like literally and thematically, and that the turtles were swearing and it was too violent. And as a 7-year-old, I was like, hell yeah, this is my shit. And then in the next one, they like removed their weapons and it's bright and they're cracking wise. And I'm like, what happened to the darkness?
I know.
First one was great.
Yeah. Well, I remember. Yeah. Well, the only swear I remember is Raphael yelling damn
repeatedly. Yeah.
It's like, what could they say in a PG movie, like, and make it sound a little gritty, but like,
right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess damn was as far as they could go.
Well, I remember being like, ooh, he said damn.
Yeah. And same thing with the Super Mario Brothers movie. You mean a movie that you on the record say you loved so much and like left the theater and then like immediately went back in and saw it again?
No, I went with my parents and I asked if we could stay for the second show, and they were like horrified at the thought, and I was like, come on, I want to watch it again right now. Who doesn't want to see this horrifying version of the Mario Brothers?
Oh man. Anyway, all right,
times.
John, you are 2 for 4.
Okay,
let's see if we can round this out.
Let's do it.
See if it's this comes in threes. Number 5.
If I believe it hard enough, think about the
That's true. There you
I'll
go.
Make it a reality.
Question 5. Putting the fun back in funerals isn't just for those attending the solemn affair. Sometimes the departed also want to leave their friends and family with a lasting impression of them. Miriam Burbank died of cancer in 2014 in New Orleans. How was her body presented at the funeral home? A. So one of these is the correct answer.
Okay.
A. Fully decked out in New Orleans Saints gear, including the logo emblazoned coffin. B. Seated on stage next to the podium where presenters were encouraged to roast her before she was later cremated. C. Sitting at a table, smoking, and surrounded by a variety of alcohols. Or D. Smiling and giving the middle finger.
All great options. Whichever it is, Miriam Burbank, clearly a legend. Boy, I could see all of them, but people are so into their teams that I'm going to go out on a limb and say A, she was decked out in Saints gear.
Miriam Burbank, Saints fan. Sorry, John.
Oh, man.
No, maybe she was, but
Sure.
this is not how Miriam Burbank went out. All right, John, here's our girl, Miriam Burbank.
Hell yeah.
She's sitting at a table. She's got a cigarette between her fingers, an ashtray, a can of Bush beer, a glass of wine, and also over her right shoulder is a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Hell yeah.
She's wearing some black shades and
legend.
Yeah.
That's good shit.
Yeah, I found out that this is not entirely an uncommon thing. People have like you can find articles with people propping themselves up and like people want to like remember them as they were and not just like necessarily lying in a coffin or whatever.
Sure.
But it's also just a very sort of uncomfy feeling.
Yes.
Because it's like they look more like they should be at like Madame Tussauds than an actual person.
Right. I mean, the most horrifying thing in any circumstance is just that like we pumped these people full of weird chemicals to preserve them. They don't ever really look like themselves. It's just like, it's grotesque no matter how you slice it. So you might as well sit in a chair and be drinking some booze.
That is true.
Respect. But yes, it is disturbing. It's disturbing either way, but I guess it is particularly troubling to gaze upon that. I hesitate to bring this up, but it reminded me of this thing recently. Did you hear about this? There was like this, maybe even in Chicago, I don't remember, but there was like a hip hop show where there was like a recently deceased rapper and they brought his corpse out on stage.
What?
And he was like elevated like that the whole time. And they would like performed a show and like were toasting in his honor and stuff, but like not everybody knew it was actually him or that it was even like happening. Anyway, that was very disturbing.
That is very disturbing. I'm going to share just a few more of these
Okay, please do.
dead photos of people.
Great.
Here's a guy looking totally normal.
Yikes.
Sitting up.
The sunglasses helped for Miriam. And here we can
And
see the
there's
eyes.
Miriam. Here's a Lionel Batiste.
Yeah, he's like a cool dude.
He said he didn't want people looking down at him, so he was standing up, leaning on a lamppost.
All right.
This person is dressed in an evening gown and a feather boa. This dude is in a coffin that looks like supposed to be like a Cadillac.
Coffin lack.
This is
like exactly how this dude looked at this concert.
Leaned against a wall, looking totally normal. It's totally how people stand, and not like his arms are on backwards.
Oh my god.
This guy's on his motorcycle.
Wow, that looks pretty cool. These are weird, man.
This dude definitely looks like he just died in his truck.
Yeah, he's in his truck.
Oh, it's an ambulance, appropriately.
Sure.
Yeah, these are
fascinating stuff here.
Yeah. So I don't know, just like embrace that we're all gonna die and maybe don't. I don't know, man.
I'm like, hey, we're honoring their wishes and that's great, but it's also like this is fairly horrifying.
Yeah, it's
I suggest cremation for all of us.
Yeah, it's very upsetting because I get it. You don't want to remember somebody as like lying in a coffin or like that's not who they were. It's like, well, the person doesn't like that person is gone, and we need to deal with that reality instead of making them some sort of like weird post-mortem taxidermy. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels a little like we're mocking death or something.
Yeah, just
anyway,
throw me on a pyre and call it a day.
Burn me up, baby.
Yeah.
Well, that was delightful. As delightful as any quiz ending with looking at corpses arranged in terrifying ways can be. No, it was a lot of fun. And of course, it makes sense that the only ones I got right were about scary movies and scary radio plays.
Yeah.
So good for me. 2 out of 5 is about my average. I'll take it. It was a lot of fun to be doing a quiz again.
Indeed.
Next week, I'll put on the quiz master pants.
Ooh, hell yeah. John's not wearing any pants this week.
Usually I don't, unless they're when I'm the quiz master.
All right. So what do you say we take a little break? And then when we come back, we'll pull back the curtains and Gregor will come on stage and
that's right.
We'll discuss the Mercury Radio Theater album, The Blue-Eyed Model.
Yeah.
Hey Sugar, I'm Erica Michelle. I host a voice diary called Brown Sugar Diaries on the Rock Candy Network, where I spill all the tea about my dating experiences, life lessons, my journey to healing and wholeness, my life as an entrepreneur, student doctor, CEO of a nonprofit, and I give my opinion on the current happenings of the world. You see why I have this voice diary? I got a lot of stuff to talk about. Tune into Brown Sugar Diaries wherever you listen to podcasts, and let's sip on this tea or wine. Your cup, your business, sugar, okay?
Hey, John.
Hey.
Have you heard of Small Step Records?
The name is familiar, but tell me more.
Well, Small Step Records is a faith-based DIY record label with bands that are melodic punk, pop punk, easycore, emo, and ska. And they have some new albums and new bands releasing records right now on all streaming services. You should check them out.
Andrew, not only that,
ooh,
they are MagPod's first official sponsor.
Oh, really?
Starburst got nothing on these guys. All right. These guys are the real deal. The tagline is love God, love others, listen to pop punk. You can go to smallsteprecords.com, check out the cool records and merch and bands they have, and we will be, through their generosity, offering some giveaways in the coming weeks and months on our socials of some of these Small Step Bands records. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Also, John, unlike some record labels, which may have come up over the course of the podcast, the artists on Small Step always keep 100% of the rights and ownership of their music.
Yes.
So any money that goes to Small Step goes directly back into supporting the bands. This is a label with integrity, so you love to see it.
Love to see it. Small Step. Check them out.
Smallsteprecords.com. We're back talking Mercury Radio Theater, talking about the Blue-Eyed Model. John, when did you first hear of Mercury Radio Theater?
I first heard of them last year when we did Magnifright Pod for the first time. In particular, Andy Verdecchio of Five Iron Frenzy recommended them to us and said that they played with them and that we should put it out into the world that he wants Five Iron and Mercury Radio Theater to play together again. So if you're listening, Buddy Mercury and the gang, know that Andy and Five Iron are ready to get back doing some dates with you. But yeah, I'm not familiar with them before that.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but they seem pretty niche. I don't know how many people know them super well, but would be very curious to hear about folks' thoughts on them. I assume you're in the same boat. You didn't hear of them until then?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was I mean, this is extremely niche, a largely instrumental punk surf rock outfit with sort of this spoken word dialogue, poetry, story in between each track. It couldn't really get more niche than that.
No. Also all extremely my shit. Very into the vibe these guys are throwing out.
Couldn't be any more niche unless it came with like some sort of directions for performing your own puppet show or something.
Yeah, if they could work puppets in somehow, that would be ideal. But you know, Frankenstein has some puppet illusions in it. But yeah, they formed in 2000 in Philadelphia, and I think they're still kicking. I mean, they put out an album in 2016, and they seem to still occasionally play shows. I think pretty much basically only in Philadelphia, but would really love to see them. They are fascinating, as you alluded to in our last segment. They're obviously named for the Orson Welles radio drama players, and their whole approach to shows was like they called them episodes. So they would do like, you know, essentially live old time radio sort of radio play things, and they would have sound effects on stage, and these spoken interstitials would sort of be like, yeah, this episode of the show where they do music in between these dramatic elements, which is super cool. They started as a trio. Kurt Fowler, aka Buddy Mercury, on guitar, vocals, and theremin, and he's sort of the main figurehead of the band who's been there since the beginning. And on those first few records of theirs, they had this surf rock sound, like you said. I'd say some Blaster vibes in here for sure.
Yeah.
And I love how, like, you know, surf rock and rockabilly have sort of become like synonymous with like Halloween stuff,
right?
Like spooky sound. I guess it's sort of fused in the 60s and it just stuck that way, but always a vibe I'm here for. But also some like noise rock elements, some math rock elements,
for sure,
I'd even say. You know, short songs, but lots of changes within those songs, and time signatures changing all over the place, complex song parts that change a lot. So this trio did a monster trilogy of albums. The Death and Life of the Undead Boy came out in 2003, which is about Victor, a vampire boy. Blue Eyed Model, which we're talking today, came out in 2005, and as he said, is about Gregor and his quest to find the perfect match. And Kilroy, which came out in 2011, which is about Kilroy, a werewolf who haunts the halls of an old age home.
Which I thought, like, I don't know, maybe we should have done that one. That sounds more up your alley specifically.
Yeah, there's some werewolf reclamation to be had there. But I would say this is their most well-known album and my favorite after listening through all of them, and maybe not all of them as carefully as this one. They're all really interesting. I would suggest anybody who likes this one especially should check out those other two in that trio. But I think this is the most interesting of those records. They also had a split EP with Calibretto 13 in the early 2000s. Talked about them / Harley Poe last year on Magnifright Pod. But yeah, these guys are sort of a mystery. They were this trio that then grew to a 9-piece ensemble, and their sound kind of changed for their fourth record. And now there's sort of more of a Gogol Bordello, like orchestral folk punk vibe. And they've got a vibraphone and a sax and a trumpet and an organ. And they're still doing mostly instrumental songs, although more lyrics these days. But they played, at least as a trio, Cornerstone several times. They played the new band stage in '02 for the first time, which was the year that Tiger Jack would have played, were we not rejected from the new band stage. But that year they played in blood splattered aprons and goggles and just like, setting the scene for who these guys are. And then, in 2016, they also released independently this album, Oh, This Can't Be Good. So I don't know. I'd love to see them. It's hard to find too much about them. I mean, there's interviews with them and videos and stuff, but like nothing that I could really find sort of about their any kind of like faith background. Like they clearly played Cornerstone and were part of the scene to some degree, but like have no real connection to the world beyond that, as far as I can tell. This record came out in Lujo Records or Luho. I'm not sure how to say it, but I've never heard of that label. But they did. Cool Hand Luke put out a record on Lujo, so a little bit of fellow alt Christian world label mates there. But at least in these early days, in addition to Buddy Mercury, we got Phil Mercury, who I'm assuming, I don't know if it's an actual brother or like just a stage name thing. Joey Getz on drums, and this guy F Woods, who eventually would play guitar with them and originally did like live sound effects for their radio play segments on stage. But there's 13 credited performers on this record, and most of them are just first names or pseudonyms. So it's all a little bit of mystery. I will say Autobot, our boy, is on there. He's one of the vocalists on this record.
Amazing.
So makes sense that he'd find his way into this world. And also credited are the Women of Eastern University Choir on the opening and closing tracks. And Eastern University is sort of known as like a progressive Christian school. Shane Claiborne is an alum. Tony Campolo is a professor there. Ron Sider, who wrote Rich Christians in an Age of Hunger, is a professor there. So I think they kind of come from that world, and maybe that explains some of it. But yeah, the record was mastered by Alan Duché and Kim Rosen. I think it sounds great. I love the vibe and I love the sound. And yeah, we can dive into a little more about what this record contains. But I don't know, what are your overall thoughts on them and their sound and their vibe?
I really like the vibe. I do wish there were maybe a handful of songs where there's some singing or some lyrics.
Yeah. We got 2 songs with lyrics.
I know. Yeah. But like sort of barely.
Yeah,
I mean,
we could use a little more.
Yeah. And because I really like what they're doing on a lot of these songs, but if you only factor in the actual songs and none of the dialogue between songs, it would be 10 tracks and 18 and a half minutes.
Right.
So it is extremely brief.
Yes.
There are 19 tracks currently with just, factor and everything in 23 minutes.
23 minutes. It's got to be the shortest LP we've done, I think.
I think probably. Most of the tracks don't crack 2 minutes. Right. So it's everything is very, very brief. So
yes,
and it does play a little bit like a radio drama. But I think what I would want from this and this kind of a concept, because I really like a lot of the music, and I guess I would want it to be fleshed out a little bit more in the songs, kind of like, you talk about Gregor and what he's doing, and then maybe flesh out that story a little bit in the song. But I don't know, I guess it's maybe trying to give you more of a vibe rather than spoon feed you the story. Maybe they want you to fill in the blanks for the songs. The more I listened to it, I thought this is actually quite a bit more dark and sinister than I think at first passing than you would actually think.
Agreed.
Spoiler alert, like Gregor isn't exactly a hero or somebody that you aspire to be like.
Nope. I think it's really dark, and I think it's sort of an investigation of toxic masculinity to some extent. And it's obviously, so we should say it's about Gregor, a young academic who is creating a companion for himself from the parts of dead women with the help of a girl in a box kit. We talk about the box and opening up the box. It's perfect this week for us. He gets a box that he opens that helps him create this creature. So obviously a Frankenstein parallel here, as we talked about. The other records are like vampire and werewolf, and this is the Frankenstein one. So perhaps there's some like faith parallels to draw there, sort of in what you're talking about, because I do think it's a sort of, they're using that as a satire of sort of, I would even say maybe like power dynamics and the idea of like, like I'm a nice guy, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't know. I think they explore some of that in interesting ways. So maybe there's like a sort of faith elements in regard to sort of like, it's about like not respecting life, I guess, in the way that the original Frankenstein is, of sort of, we're making a sort of mockery of what life is by sort of creating it on our own terms and hoping that these things that we create will be able to control them fully and do our will. And of course it doesn't work that way.
You mean like propping up a dead body on a motorcycle, or like
kind of like that?
That's
a little disturbing. But I don't know. I think the things that they do say, I think, are interesting, and they're employing this story in an interesting way, and no sort of, we've talked a lot about what is the line of how spooky Christian bands use this content.
Right.
Is it done in a way that's like to sort of proselytize, or is it sort of spooky because they enjoy spooky stuff and it doesn't need to necessarily like fit this message in, or maybe it's an effective way of telling this message that they want to tell. But this feels like there's no overt faith stuff anywhere in any of their records, as far as I can tell, and maybe other people know more, but I don't know. I think this rules. I'm way into this. I love every song on here. I hear you on the lyrics, and I think that would be cool, but I guess I'm just thinking of it like so much as a package, and I like the idea of they're almost more like plays than they are shows or even albums.
I guess this being as niche as it is, and something that we certainly haven't covered anything like this, and this isn't sort of my, as you said, this is like so up your alley in terms of how it's packaged. I want more story there. I want more to chew on, but I guess even still with these short little vignettes, there's still plenty to chew on. It's just over so fast, it
is very fast. I guess the idea is kind of like, a lot of those old radio horror things, or even like TV shows now, are about like 25-ish minutes plus commercials,
right?
So I guess it's sort of that, but it's very short. But I do think, like you said, that there's more to it. I feel like the first couple times I listened, I was like, yeah, it's mostly like a play on the Frankenstein myth. And then as I listened through, I was like, oh no, it's actually like, it is much more sort of sinister than that. I just love how complex the songs are, how many sort of different directions they go in while still being short and fun and like pretty listenable. Like it's weird, but it's pretty accessible. The guitar and the drums, I think, are the definite standouts for me, although there are some really fun and complex bass lines in there too. But all three of them are really talented. Such wild energy maintained throughout the whole thing. I feel like it's such a fun time. There's organ here throughout as well, which I love. I love, especially in spooky stuff, some organ always helps. But I don't know. It's a little different for us. We talked about talking about them last year, and we were kind of like, well, mostly no lyrics, lots of dialogue tracks. They're all really short. So it's a short album, and our discussion will probably be pretty short for that reason. But I do feel like they're worth considering because they're so interesting and so talented. And they were sort of a revelation to me, where I'm like, wow, these guys they're doing such interesting musical and thematic things, and I feel like they don't really get their chance to shine very much. I don't know. I haven't really seen much about them. So anyway, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think it's with bands like this that you would probably find maybe the most passionate kinds of fans, because when you get this niche and you have to be like super into this sort of thing, and I think that's
right.
I think it's sort of what you were alluding to earlier, that sort of transcends just like a collection of songs, and that like you said, it is sort of like a play, and that it's maybe it's not the kind of album that one just sits down and like throws in the car to go on a road trip and you're gonna like listen to a story about Gregor, but there is maybe a lesson worth taking away from it, even if it's not necessarily driven home with lyrical points in every song.
Right. Yeah. And I do feel like even though there aren't a ton of lyrics to pour over, there are corresponding Bible passages we can analyze. Like, I do appreciate them not being like, and Frankenstein is a lot like, Job and Lazarus, and that's why you should not sin. You know what I mean? Like, there's none of that here. You know what I mean? Like, it's just weird and spooky, and they happen to be connected to the Christian
is
scene.
A metaphor for sin.
Right. Like, I like that it's just like, no, we're not really like winking or doing like a twist on any of that. It's just like, this is just like, horror, sci-fi, surf punk that happened to play at Cornerstone a lot. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it time to open up that box with the girl in the box and dive in?
I think we should. And because a lot of the songs are so short,
yeah,
these
are gonna be short.
We'll listen to just little bits of it. But opening track, The Blue-Eyed Model.
Ooh.
We barely even get going on it, but
That's true.
The song rules. This is my number 2.
It's my number 1.
Okay.
It's great. Starting with that women's choir we mentioned, I think a really effective way. It's sort of like both creepy and kind of heavenly.
Yep.
It sets this theatrical tone. But that's very brief, because it just breaks into this frenzied guitar and drums. Time signature in the beginning is so fast and the drums are so wild. Those fills are just like like cymbal crashes everywhere. So you already have like whiplash from this choir going into that, and then after that it sort of settles into a different time signature, like a great surf riff that comes in.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's such a great immediate energy setting song for the record.
Yeah,
so into it.
Just a burst of intensity, just catching you off guard with those beautiful vocals. Yeah, I think you had said earlier, you said something about a wild energy, which I think, wild, frenzied, energetic. I think this song encapsulates a lot of that, and a lot of what you will hear on the record.
Yeah, I just want to see this live immediately. And I know, like, these days, if and when they do play, it's like a different band. They're probably not playing much of any of these songs these days, but I'm like, boy, I would love to see this version live and experience it. I just really like the melody here a lot.
Yeah,
there's like a whistling noise radio frequency sound, that comes in, which is cool. So cool.
That's so cool.
Love that.
Works for
50s
me.
sci-fi vibe. But yeah, just that energy comes right back in after that little chill out section. And I don't know. If you really want to read into it, perhaps we understand this opening as we sort of get the closing, which is also when the women's choir comes back, which like perhaps this is like dead woman / these dead women maybe like going to heaven or in heaven, and then it's like interrupted by Gregor's acts and it gets all frenzied. I don't know. That's perhaps a big overread, but maybe that's what's happening.
Well, I mean, the blue-eyed model needs to come from somewhere, and then it's followed up by a funeral. So, I mean,
yep.
I don't think it's reading too much into it.
All right. Well, there you go.
Should we hear a little bit about Gregor?
Let's do it.
A person doesn't go mad all at once. Here a little, there a little, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, things set into place. Line upon line, the cogs and the clockwork keep pace, and assign the undesign of dementia. Precept upon precept disconnects quietly from the mind's receptors.
Just this beautiful pacing and rhyme. I don't know. It feels very Shakespearean, and not just because of the accent, but because of, I don't know, the way in which it is. I don't know the terminology for
I don't know if it's iambic pentameter here.
Yeah, I don't know if it is.
Like the rhyming structure is like kind of complex.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is a thing that they use on all 3 of these Monster Trilogy records. Sort of a rhyming male narrator in between songs. But obviously you're talking about sort of the madness and obsession that can take over in the way that it did for Victor Frankenstein and the Frankenstein story, and as it does for Gregor in this story.
I like that it starts off with, that essentially you don't go from 0 to mad immediately.
Right. Yeah.
And as I was talking about The Shining earlier, that's sort of Jack devolves into madness throughout the film, and it builds up that sort of tension. But I would encourage everybody to listen to this record and hear some more of the narration and the storytelling, and because it's as central to the record as the songs are.
Yes.
And it's not like a skip worthy part of the record.
No.
I feel like,
and they're all like 30 seconds ish anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's true, but I do find it to be very compelling.
Yeah.
We put the fun back in Funeral. This is my number 1.
It's my number 2.
Okay.
But I thought about swapping those. I could have easily done the order you did. They're both so good.
I know. And I mean, the melody to this song, I'm like smiling the whole time because it's so
fun,
pleasing, and it's so fun, and it's got the haze in it. So, it's going to be a good time.
You can't go wrong with the shout along. Hi. Love a hey.
Love a gang
vocal. Shout along. But it's just bouncy, great riffs throughout. Really showing off those surf rock riffs here. Great name too for the song.
Yeah.
And I love that guitar vibrato thing of the like doom doom boing, like whether they're bending the strings or just like shaking the guitar, where you get the vibrato from that. I love those sounds.
A whammy bar of some kind.
Yeah, got to be whammy in there. I love that sound. And like, again, the complexity of this thing, it changes back and forth between time signatures and parts of the songs all over the place. I know it's like a very short song. We've already heard half of it, but I would like to hear. So there's like organ and jingle bells that come in, and then it switches to a complex rhythm again. And I love what the drums are doing there. That's about like 117, I would say. Chilling out here. Love that.
So cool.
So cool. And then that goes back into at the end of the song, which rules. Yeah, I just love the like, I don't know, the rhythms that the drums are doing throughout of the like like just like constantly cutting out, coming back in. I don't know, they're so tight and like they all have chops, and it's like, again, it's quick and breezy, but there's so much going on. You're like struggling to keep up, but it's such a fun time. Like I feel like with like some math rock or noise rock, you're kind of like, all right, I get it. In this case, it's just kind of breezy and blows by, and you're just along for the ride. I don't know. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, and I love a descending melody. Just the
totally
the sort of
so good, man.
So interesting, so pleasurable. My brain and it's just all lighting up, just having a great time.
Yep. So good.
A little more Gregor.
Nights, to vent his vexed state in lights and sights, were often spent in the company of whatever young woman's delights Gregor happened to fancy this week or that. But it chanced that none could vie with his expectations. No suitable helper was found for him. Hence,
Gregor giving off big incel vibes.
100%. I wrote ultimate toxic masculinity and incel character here. Yeah, so we're starting to get a sense here of like what's happening, which is like, oh, he can't find a suitable companion, which is like, you know, for whatever reason, dude is maybe, I don't even think he's going on dates, but he's just observing people at least and be like, ugh, none of them are good enough for me, Gregor.
Yeah.
Or perhaps he's like socially awkward or something, and so it doesn't go as well or whatever, but he buries himself in his studies to figure out a way to make his own companion. This is a troubled dude we're learning here.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I sometimes don't want to give off the vibe that like anybody who can't find a date or can't find a companion is an incel, but like when it's being told as like no one is good enough or suitable and it just doesn't work out because of his standard, that he has to resort to constructing and building, you know, what's he building in there? You know,
it's building a lady.
It's like maybe Gregor is the problem here.
Yes. Listen, I have social anxiety myself. I empathize with anyone who may feel that way about finding partnership, but the problem obviously comes when it's like, it's not that you can't find anybody, it's that you think you're like better than everyone, and so to sort of get revenge, I'll make my own and they'll have to do everything I say and listen to what I do, and that's like, well, that's not what a partnership is. So
no.
You want to give the pronunciation on this next one a crack?
Laissez les bons temps rouler. Maybe
I think my high school French, laissez le bon temps rouler.
Let the good
Pretty
times
close.
roll.
Yeah.
Such
So cool.
shreddy sounds, such a cool guitar sound, such a cool bass sound. Time
Rules.
signatures are so cool.
This is my number 3.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine.
Stomp all over that.
my first three songs are my top three songs are the first three songs of the album in order, which is kind of boring, but I love all these songs. There are no songs that I dislike, but I feel pretty clear about these being my top three. And I think it's in part what you were just saying about starting out with these fairly complex rhythms. Again, I love what the drums are doing. Then it kind of moves into these punk chords. But again, I'd like to hear a little bit later.
Sure.
It goes into like just the single guitar note sort of played furiously, and then the other instruments come back in. I think that starts at about 40 seconds. Did we get there already?
Let's see.
There we go. Yeah. So cool. I love it. Yeah. Complex bass line in there too.
Yes.
They're like just that feels the most sort of math rocky, is sort of like what the bass and drums are doing on this one. I don't know, it rules. There's some cool reverby surf guitar that comes in at the ending here too. I really dig, again, sort of like that move from like complex rhythm into just kind of straight punk chords into surf reverby stuff. Like it's such a cool combination, and they pull off these transitions so effectively.
Yep.
Here for it.
Love some hand claps.
So cool. Yes.
Gregor's about to get his girl.
A package. Its black wrappings with pale white letters proclaim its simple title with pensive excitement. The parcel merely reads clearly, "Girl in a box." Inside, there is nothing more than a few scrawled.
The like sort of jazzy instrumentals in the back. It does give that film noir kind of like sexy vibe going on. Smoke filled back room, kind of smoky dark nightclub vibe to it.
Yeah. A lot of muted trumpets in those, and there's a dialogue track later that begins with a muted trumpet note that's like exactly the muted trumpet note from a Twin Peaks song, and I think this is giving us some Twin Peaks vibes as well. Everything gives off Twin Peaks vibes for me, I guess. But
can we just listen to the the rhyming structure again? Like there's just something so, I don't know how it's done, but the emphasis and the pacing of everything, it sounds so cool. I just want to listen to these first like 10 or 15 seconds again.
A package. Its black wrappings with pale white letters proclaim its simple title with pensive excitement. The parcel merely reads clearly, "Girl."
Hey, listener, are you a English teacher, literature,
poetry teacher?
Poetry. Explain to me what it is I'm hearing, because
we're so used to like da-da-da-da hearing, da-da-da-da leering, but this is like hearing goes leering and blah 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 leering, you know, like it's the rhymes come,
but there's like
sooner and multiple times per couplet.
Letters proclaim its simple title with pensive excitement.
Like the title and excitement, there's like those they're like doing things, they're like popping really in my ears in a different way than something, I don't know, because poetry is not something that I'm like actively into. I don't seek out or read poetry, and I think it's because I don't know how it's supposed to sound. So when somebody who is reading it knows what they're doing with it, then my ears are like, oh, that makes sense. I know what I'm reading, or no, I know what I'm hearing, versus like trying to read it and be like, I don't know what's going on. But they're clearly like, they're not half-assing it, and they know what they're doing, and it feels, you know, you could easily kind of be like, oh, I went to this cheap theater show the other day and they're trying something and they did these poems in between and it didn't really come together. Like this could be that, but it's done like so well and so effectively that you're kind of like taken aback by it. Right.
But he gets his girl in a box kit. It arrives with instructions on how to put corpse parts together, we assume. That's never said like explicitly, but that's the suggestion. And you know, we've learned before that he's going to get his companion no matter what it takes. And we learn that he's requested the blue-eyed model.
Yeah. So this next song is called Girl in a Box.
So good.
This is a dope song. You familiar with the story of Colleen Stan from the 70s?
I don't think so. Tell me. Do I want to know?
Probably not. It's this true story about this 22-year-old woman who is kidnapped and was kept in a box for 7 years and was like
Jesus Christ,
repeatedly like raped and tortured, and she lived, she survived, she's still alive, but she was called the girl in the box.
Wow.
And it's just like this terrifying and horrific story. And but like in my mind, like I can't not think about like
interesting
a girl in the box, like, and the depths to which humanity can just be truly monstrous.
Wow.
This album is not too, I mean, obviously it's a different kind of story, but both of them involve a lack of autonomy and also incorporate concepts of control and ownership. And it's all very disturbing, either one.
Yeah, that's horrifying. I don't know. I guess because I'd take it as such a like Frankenstein simile that like I assumed he was taking corpse parts.
Right.
But I guess it's possible he's also like killing women and taking the parts that way. I don't know. Upsetting though.
Yeah.
Musically, you mentioned a descending melody. I love that sort of descending surf guitar part that opens the song. It's so cool. And then it becomes just like a driving punk song.
Right.
And then kind of chills out a bit with like an organ part that comes in. I just love, again, the kind of the winding path that these songs take you on. I love all the stops and starts here. A lot of the songs have that, but it's so like, it's such a fun element to a lot of these songs, is like how abruptly they'll stop and then come right back in, and in ways that I'm like, oh, they had to practice that so many times to get that exactly right. And
it's this sort of song structure where you think, how does a person first think of that?
Totally. I'm assuming it's sort of like, is it one person who comes in and is like, I've got this idea and follow me, or is it like found in sort of jamming and figuring out stuff that works? I don't know, but these guys know what they're doing.
Recently, I think was it recent? No, this is an older headline from the Hard Times, but I saw it recently. Math rock guitarist either virtuoso or doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
It's a fine line.
But I guess
these guys do now.
These guys know what they're doing, but yes, that sort of noodly time signature stuff that we get here in a little bit. But this next bit of dialogue is also where you start to see where things kind of take a creepier and weird turn.
Gregor, after his manic fashion and frantic in his passion, could never settle for mediocre materials with which to construct his model. He hunts and searches with a meticulous craving for the highest quality parts. His heart rejoices over each small component that he unearths.
Yeah, so he's looking for the highest quality parts, and he rejoices with each part that he unearths. So we are,
I think it's corpses, right?
yeah, we're sort of inferring that this is corpse parts.
Yeah.
But like it's all said with like this levity that if you're not paying attention to the words he's saying, it's like,
Right.
and he just loves these high quality unearthed body parts, you know.
Right.
You're just like, oh no,
Well,
this dude is fucked up.
Yeah. That's another element of this record that as the songs go on reflect more and more this like perspective on what's happening that's like sunny and like cheerful increasingly, even as things are getting worse and worse in terms of like psychosis and stuff. So I don't know if it's supposed to sort of be like reflecting Gregor's lens on things and his sort of skewed version of reality,
Sure.
or if it's just sort of like the story is being told in that way of like this sort of winking, like we're going to present you this like terrifying thing, but done with this sort of like, yeah, told with this kind of levity or whatever,
Yeah.
like you were saying.
Yeah, or like, is this a sort of situation where Gregor is actually the narrator and he's like narrating his own story?
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna write my own story and tell it as if like I'm, you know.
Yeah, that's probably the best read on it, is because it's like he's clearly the hero,
right,
as the songs go on, and there's clearly only one way these things can be told and understood from the perspective of the narrator, and it's Gregor's perspective. So yeah, that makes sense that he's like, I'm gonna write my own story here, sort of.
Yep. The aptly titled Spare Parts.
This is so cool.
This is my number 3.
Yeah, I think this is probably my number 4. So good.
It's so fast and noodly, and the bass is so cool. There's everything is moving. It's everything is so fluid and nonstop and propulsive. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it rules. I love that central guitar hook of the and it does a key change in that sort of surf rock way. Later, it's like you know, it goes up. It's so cool, and the organ is great throughout here too. I really like that touch. And then there's that cool kind of ascending guitar part, that comes in at the end. Yeah, it rules. I mean, the guitar is like yeah.
A little bit of a organy sound going on.
Mm-hmm. Love that organ. Yeah, just the surf rock guitar time in the spotlight on this one for sure.
Yeah, into it. Super into it. All right, so now we're into the back half of the record. So we both, our top 3s were all in the first half of the record. Now we're getting into the, I guess, you know, the well, maybe I don't know how many acts you want to call this album, but you know, if you want to call this Act 2, you know, I think so. This is when things, you know, you think everything's going great and everything's gonna be fine.
Gregor feels inside him the swelling of pride. His eyes swim and his mind reels at the prize before him. His creature is ready. Steady now, he gazes at his blue-eyed model, undazed, amazed.
Feeling proud, gazing upon his creation.
Yeah.
It ends with, for the first time, he feels complete, which is like, oh, that's not good. It's not what you want.
No. Yeah, he feels complete because he built something for his own pleasure and control. We don't know necessarily the specifics of like what this blue-eyed model is or his intentions with it, but probably not good. Probably not good intentions. No, I'm just probably gonna go out on a limb.
Yeah. And the more that we sort of go on here, the more, if you want to read it this way, I think you can see that, like, okay, but what, like in Frankenstein, the story, he's doing this on his own. Like, he's a rogue, brilliant scientist who decides to control life, and it doesn't go the way he wants it to. But in this one, it's like he's helped by like a corporation that exists called Girl in a Box that like helps you use kits to do this horrifying stuff. So it's like, not only is he sort of named as being implicit in this, but like society is as well, or like, if you want to call it, like, we learn it's like scientific men running these things, right, or capitalism or whatever. But it's like, I don't know, I feel like it sort of points a finger at like how it's not just one creepy dude. He's like aided by a society that wants to help him achieve these unsavory goals.
Yeah. And there's probably some weird element to this Girl in a Box where it's like not all parts included, some assembly required, so they can have plausible deniability. It's like, right. Hey, we're just selling this thing. We're not saying that people should go out and dig up body parts or nothing.
But if like Elon Musk or somebody like championed this idea as like a venture capitalist, you wouldn't be that surprised, right?
Absolutely not. Considering this dude has like 97 children from like,
right, he's trying to like repopulate
30 women, and none of his kids want to have anything to do with him.
He's kind of a Gregor.
He is a huge Gregor. Classic Gregor. All right. The Very Merry Unbirthday Song.
So cool. Just fun, frenetic. Halfway through it changes a little bit. Acoustic bass comes in for the first time with an organ, and we kind of chill out for a little bit. But I don't know, it's the blue-eyed model's birthday here, but it's an unbirthday because she's not really alive, which is why I think it's the Very Merry Unbirthday Song. So again, we're kind of like celebrating this thing that for him is like this positive thing, but it's like very creepy and disturbing. So.
Yeah. I mean, maybe to him it's something worth celebrating, but
right.
Moving on. I feel like this is kind of when things start to go a little awry.
Yes. The blue-eyed model and Gregor are made for each other. Outings become a perfect opportunity for Gregor to parade his new trophy. The beauty of his...
Yeah, parade his new trophy is
not a
telling phrase about what they might be sort of investigating by telling the story.
Yeah, not a great sentence.
No, but they're going on dates. They're having a great time, at least through Gregor's lens on the situation, and we're whistling, things are jaunty, and we're about to break into the next number, which is sort of a country jamboree style sound.
Yeah, it's a Who Shot Whistler's Mother, which I'll share some thoughts on after we listen.
Can't wait. Give me these Whistler's mother's thoughts.
So, I mean, maybe if like we're supposed to think that Gregor is like, whistling, walking down the street, having a great time. If that's kind of the image we're supposed to be getting.
Yeah, I think so.
Whistling is super flat. It doesn't sound great.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I don't know if it's like that's the point. Also, like I don't know anything about Whistler's mother as far as like oh, I didn't know like the painter's mom was killed. And I'm like, from what I could tell, she wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't totally understand what it means.
No, I don't either. I that was one thing that I meant to investigate, and I was like, it's probably nothing. Like I probably would have heard something. I think it's probably just like Whistler's mother. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where I took it. But
hey, but this is something that I learned because that's just the Whistler's mother is just a colloquial name for that painting.
Okay.
It's actually called Arrangement in Gray and Black #1.
Okay.
So
the guy's name was Whistler, though, right?
Yes, James Abbott McNeill Whistler. And his mom was Anna McNeill Whistler. And
what's her deal?
She's super dead.
Okay. Well, it doesn't stop some of us.
Doesn't stop Gregor.
No.
But yeah, evidently Whistler's mother, he was originally going to have her standing for the portrait, but she was a little bit older at this point, and she didn't feel like she could stand for as long as he needed to. And so
interesting.
It's like had her sit.
Fascinating.
There you go.
I vaguely remember an elementary school slideshow in art class where we learned about some famous paintings, and this was one of them. And I think I learned some of that at the time, but haven't thought about any of that in 30 years. So
yep. There you go.
Interesting. Musically here, we got that acoustic bass coming back in, reminiscent of Harley Poe.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
Violent Femmes, that sound. But then that full electric surf guitar comes in. It's great. I don't know. The whistling is fun. I think you're onto something interesting with the like, is he whistling? Does the whistling sound reflect that? I don't know. It's interesting. But this is the second longest song on the record at 2.5 minutes. There's a little breakdown section that's cool. I don't know. This is a fun one. This is the most sort of like jaunty, in the like narrator's version of this story. It's where he's like on a merry-go-round and in the park with her, and like, how dead is she exactly in this scenario? I don't know. But anyway, he's having a great time. Yeah, slow it down a little.
Ooh. It's getting sexy on that merry-go-round.
Yeah, it is. Everything the drums do.
Those horses are going up and down. Little mandolin, maybe?
Yep. So cool.
It's cool.
All right, we got some more classic incel stuff coming up.
Many will say, in their clever way, that good things cannot last forever, but they are wrong. For Gregor can see no end in sight, no bend around which will appear any other fortune but this one, and that of his own making. The blue-eyed model, there's no mistaking it, is a perfect companion, so very suitable.
So, just delightfully lacking in any self-awareness, and it's just like, no, there's nothing that's going to change this. There's nothing that could go wrong. I'm in control. This is my plan.
Yeah. This can last forever, and she's suited to me because all she wants to do is listen to me. And again, at least from his perspective.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's what we always kind of hear about, like, I don't know, when we're investigating this idea of toxic masculinity or incel culture, is like what they're looking for is someone who will just listen to someone who feels that they aren't listened to.
Yeah.
And even if they're not saying anything, it's like, well, they're perfect for me because they just want to listen to me and hear everything I have to say. And it's like probably the woman, even if she's like a compendium of dead women, doesn't want to listen to you, Gregor.
A couple important things is, we keep talking about Gregor and whether he's the narrator and everything from his perspective. And of course, we don't get the blue-eyed model's perspective, let alone get a name for her.
Right.
Does even bother to give her a name.
Right. Yeah.
It's just like another lack of humanity element to this. Is just like, oh, it's the blue-eyed model. We don't we don't even need to give her any like identifying name or anything, because she's just she's just a companion. She's just perfect for me because she's a trophy. I'm gonna trot her around.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point, that she stays referred to as the blue-eyed model throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
But bad news for Gregor. Bad news comes in threes. Sort of a sinister waltz.
Yeah, it's a good phrase.
Little
for this song.
Sort of fuzzy, distorted bass sound there.
Yeah, nice fuzzy bass. This is the most sort of muted song musically, and it's the longest at 3 minutes. But when those lyrics come in a little bit, that's when this how sinister it is comes through. He sings, "I gave you life, you'll be my wife, and I loved you. What will you do for me?" Just kind of shouted. And then that moves into, "I made you, I love you, and this is what you do to me," which feels very like
Pedro.
I'm a nice guy. Yeah. Oh yeah. And very Pedro too. Don't you put, put down that telephone. You're not going anywhere. Yeah. But yeah, it's that nice guy thing of like supposedly romantic, but obviously threatening.
Yeah.
Where it's like, "Oh, I gave you life. Like, I love you. What are you gonna do for me? Like, I made you, and this is how you thank me. Like, I'm a nice guy." I don't know. Yeah, this whole thing. Yeah, the waltz aspect of it kind of keeps up this romantic facade he's hoping for, but the sinister nature of everything and how it's not going according to his plan is sort of leaking in from everywhere. And I don't know, even a sort of person that we literally create won't do exactly what we want them to do.
A little bit of an ex machina kind of situation. Like the thing that you create ends up, I don't know, surprisingly having a mind of its own and wanting autonomy and freedom and to not be controlled. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe the blue-eyed model's like started having feelings and thoughts of her own, or needs and desires of her own, and then and he's like, how could you want other things other than me?
I'm so interesting. I created an electric car. Yep. Ooh, Twin Peaks.
Makes me want to get a piece of pie and some coffee.
Damn good coffee.
A malfunction can be the only explanation for the fact of such a vile act of misconduct. Gregor will put a stop to this at once by reporting for repairing the glaring glitch to the company that manufactured the blue-eyed model.
You're right. We keep up this sort of noiry trumpet sound, but in the background you can kind of hear that like
it gets a little
like, it just sounds creepy.
Get a little darker.
Gregor's perception is that if she quote unquote betrays him by not doing what he wants. Surely it was a problem with the model, not with him.
Right.
And calls her fractured. The glitch must be repaired. So that's where I'm like, wait, does that mean he possibly kills her again or does something violent to her? I don't know exactly. But clearly he's not happy with how his model has come together and is gonna, at the very least, try to fix her, send her back and figure out a way for him to control her even more.
Yeah, and when you compare the narrator's tone of voice in this bit of dialogue compared to other earlier sections, the sort of, what we called the sunny disposition does change to sound a little bit more angry and threatening, which sort of reinforces the Gregor as the narrator of the story, because he's clearly frustrated and angry.
A malfunction can be the only explanation for the fact of such a vile act of misconduct. Gregor will put a stop to this at once by reporting for repairing the glaring glitch to the company that manufactured the blue-eyed model.
Very upset.
Yeah, that little toy piano suggests things are not all well. And of course it's malfunction.
Yes,
that can be the only thing to
the only possible explanation. A hero and his friends. I love all these guitar tones.
So cool. It's such a fun one.
Little bendy. I just love it all.
I love it too. It's just again walking that line of like, it's never not sort of creepy or spooky, but it's all fun. Like all the songs are so fun, and this is no exception. Which makes sense because, like, again, if we're going from the sort of narrator perspective, we're back in sort of bouncy mode because he's like, I'm the hero. Things are gonna work out okay. The lyrics are, things will turn out in the end for our hero and his friends. And again, you're like, is it sarcastic because it's like about Gregor, or is it from Gregor's perspective? Will things turn out for him because this kind of guy runs things in the real world, or like gets away with it? You know what I mean? Like, again, the sort of nice guy, like always used to getting their way, sort of. So like, he's confident that he's going to be able to still sort of stay on top, even though he's not much of a hero and doesn't really have any friends or seem to have any friends. So I don't know.
I'm wondering if the hero obviously is Gregor, and his friends, I'm wondering, are the people who provide people like Gregor with these girls in a box, like
these engineers that we hear about,
the people in power, the people who are in control, whether it's
totally
the ones selling the girls or the ones building them. It's like, you know what? He's like, it's gonna be all right because this one didn't work, but maybe there's always another one. Maybe there's another model. The album starts with the blue-eyed model, and it ends with the blue-eyed model. So maybe he's like, I'll just get another one. I'll just get a new blue-eyed model. Just replace this old one, get a new one. We'll start over.
Yeah, I think however you sort of read the analogy here, I feel like it's undeniable that sort of the idea of looking at women as disposable and of models that we can discard when they aren't being controlled by us, and that the hero and his friends are the ones who get their way and who control things. I mean, that's just kind of baked into this story. And yeah, like you said, it's disturbing, and it's maybe more complex than you initially think, and you wouldn't necessarily expect a Christian band from the early 2000s to be achieving this kind of sort of what I view as like gender and social commentary. Often, again, for a scene that typically doesn't do women very well in their sort of thematic analogies they tend to employ. So I don't know. I'm like encouraged in this case to hear young men from this world expressing this kind of thing, even though what they're expressing is like very disturbing.
Right.
It suggests an awareness of like gender dynamics and social realities. Yeah.
Should we close out with the last bit of dialogue and then the closing track?
Let's do it.
After a barrage of tests, Gregor agrees it's best to willingly go with the technicians, but this acquiescence is under the pretense of ruling out human error as a component in the assembly process.
So,
yep.
It's like, I mean, yeah, I'll listen to the engineers, because like, I don't know, just like, it couldn't have been me. Gotta rule out that this is my fault. It probably wasn't my fault. So
the engineers from the company are confident they can fix the problem, which is ominous.
Yep.
And the engineers, again, could be like the engineers of our society. Women are becoming a problem. Perhaps we outlaw abortion, just to throw an example out there.
Yeah.
They can fix this problem of them getting out of line. We're gonna stay on top. I don't know. Again, maybe some people are listening to this and being like, guys, you're overreaching. This is not what I heard. But I'm like, I feel like you can't not understand it in this way. So I don't know. It just feels it's a very ominous conclusion.
Wait, so you think people would be like, Andrew, John, you're reading far too much into these lyrics?
Well,
it's kind of our deal. So
that's our deal. Also, it's like,
get off
what are we
backs.
gonna do with an album with no lyrics? Well, we found a way to talk about it for a long time. So
all right. Now we got that choir back, but for quite a bit longer.
Yes. Yeah, this time it doesn't get interrupted so quickly as it does in the first version. So it starts the same way as the same titled song in the opening, but again, sort of heavenly feeling.
Yep.
But after all that, even more sort of ominous and foreboding in a way too.
Yep.
There's like a grief in it for sure. So it's like perhaps she went back to rest. These multiple women that made up this woman went back to rest. And there's like a sort of peace in that. But also, does it suggest the next cycle? It starts again in the same way.
Yeah.
With another woman or women. I don't know. I also get, again, this is my sort of Twin Peaks read on this thing, but the movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is about Laura Palmer, who's killed in the series, and the movie sort of investigates her life, and it ends with, we know that she's dead, so this is not a spoiler, but it ends with her like essentially going to heaven, and it ends with her and like with this angel in this like space, and it's this like it's like joyous in a way, because it's like, oh, she finally is sort of relieved of this pain and has moved on, but it's also undercut with this real like creepiness, and this feels very similar vibe to me. So anyway, I don't know, it's like a haunting and pretty and sort of chilling way to close the record too.
Yeah, I think Morning feels like the best. But it makes me wonder though, like who is the one that's mourning here? Like Gregor might be like disappointed, and because he thought she was perfect and ideal, and maybe the blue-eyed model. We don't know, because this is not from her perspective. We don't know in what state of awareness she is in.
Yeah, right.
So could it be like she's needs to be fixed, and so she's, maybe mourning? I don't know. We don't have there's just only so much we can infer, but
yeah,
it's definitely not like a cheery, happy ending for
no, it's not
anyone involved.
Yeah, this whole album is like so fascinating. I find it such a like interesting mix of like super fun. Like I think you can throw on these songs like if you're just listening to one or two at a time and just like rock out and have a great time. If you're taking in the whole thing together, as you're saying, as a piece, I think you can still have fun with the songs, but like you have to kind of take it as a whole. And like concept album doesn't even cover it. That's not what this is. It's like it's an expression of a story told through this album. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm very impressed with like the way they're able to bounce back and forth between really, really fun instrumentation, levity, like you're saying, seriousness when it sort of requires that, and ultimately like a pretty like, I don't know, profound and upsetting statement. I really think they pull it off effectively. And I don't know, it sort of calls to mind, like I said, I feel like I've seen versions of sort of like plays or theaters doing something like this to like, different degrees of success. But I feel like if I saw this performed live with all these elements to it, I'd be like, wow, they really told like a really interesting, unique story here. And I feel like Mercury Radio Theater did. So I found it very fascinating to listen to. I really like them a lot. I really like all their albums. So if folks like this, I suggest digging into more. Maybe next year we'll talk werewolf episode.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm fascinated to hear if people are into these guys, if they knew them or saw them, if they still follow them. I would love for them to continue playing shows and see them somehow. But if folks have particular insight into this record or other albums of theirs of this band, I'd be happy to hear them. I'd love to hear kind of Buddy Mercury or the band's perspective on what we shared today and whether he
get him on the pod,
agreed or disagreed. But get him on the pod if you're out there, buddy. Hit us up. And you can also hit us up, Magpod Nation, at Magnified Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Follow and subscribe to the pod if you haven't already, and give us a rating or review. 5 stars, please. We will read your review on the pod. You can email us at magnifiedpod@gmail.com.
You can leave us a voicemail at 872-762-4763, 872-7MAGPOD.
You can support us over at the Patreon. That's patreon.com/magnifiedpod, where this month we will have a special watch along spooky campy movie commentary episode. We will have a Zoom hangout this month we're planning on. So
all for Patreon folks.
For that. Yes, Patreon punk exclusives. But not exclusively, but for everyone, you could pick up some season 4 merch and some Magnifright Pod merch at magnifiedpod.storeenvy.com. We got shirts, posters, mugs, water bottles, sweatshirts. Get that Phantom Cackler merch. Represent our mysterious and wonderful dude.
That werewolf
reclamation project. That's right. Thanks to Small Step Records for sponsoring us. Go to smallsteprecords.com to learn more. And thanks to shadow producer Jason and Bruno at Unoriginal Vinyl for our artwork. Well, I think I hear the voice of the spirit begging us to shut the fuck up. We'll be back to try to make you go astray next week when we'll discuss SS Bounty Hunters Serpents for Eggs.
Squeedly deep deep skeedly boop bop a deep.
I hope you're taking notes for when we form our horror surf punk band.
Well, yes, I think the difference with our horror surf punk band is that we're going to be singing about the things, surfing vampires and werewolves rocking on guitar, and
you're not going to leave bummed out about the state of humanity.
No.
You're going to have a great time because we're going to be rocking with these monsters,
Yes.
just encouraging them in their monsterdom and having a great time.
Yeah, we want them to feel affirmed. We want them to feel proud. We want them to feel supported and loved, because
we're allies to the monster community at Magnifright Pod.
For more shows like this one, visit rockcandyrecordings.com.